Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nebraska Schools Esports Association's Twitch Talk Thursday. My name is Nate Simmons. I'm on the board for the group. And tonight we've got with us the coach from York University, Coach Collin Tucker. Good evening, Coach.
Good evening. How you doing tonight?
Fantastic. Um, so we're just going to ask you a whole bunch of different questions about your program, and just kind of learn a little bit more about you and just spread the good word of esports.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So, first question, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in Denver actually, and then I came out to York College at the time, just changed to York University back in 2011, actually on a track scholarship. So I competed and did some different things throughout the college while I was a student, and then afterwards I ended up working for the school and staying in Nebraska and enjoying the small town life of the Midwest. Wasn't too bad, and throughout the years, I was able to actually back in 2019, I was actually able to help host one of the first state tournaments for the NSCSA at York. We didn't really have the best setup, and much better now, but it was really cool, really fun experience. And so then a few years later, when they were looking to add an esports program, it was something I was interested in. I've always been, video games were a big part of my life since I was a kid, and loved hosting those events. And so it was a natural yes for me.
So, what was one of your favorite games growing up?
Definitely Ocarina of Time was one of the first campaign
Nice.
games I played, and we had that and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 was a big game. And then once I got into PC gaming, it was World of Warcraft for a long, long time.
Nice.
And but those were like, and then Halo 3 was probably the game I played the most competitively.
All right.
That and like Smash Brothers Melee were probably the games I played the most throughout my middle school and high school years.
All right. So, how many WoW accounts do you have then
I think
that
I've
you want to
probably
admit to?
yeah, I've probably had like three maybe, each with quite a few different characters. And then eventually one of my buddies he was a few years older than me. I was telling him like, oh yeah, I just leveled this guy all the way up and now I'm maxing out this one. He's like, yeah, the reason I quit is because I found I didn't have any time for anything. And I was like, yeah, okay, I kind of see it. So I backed off that a little bit and started
Yeah.
getting a little more social with my gaming. But
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about the York program.
yeah, so we're in our second full competitive year. I was hired back in the spring of 2021, and so we're about 20 people strong throughout all of our different titles, and we compete in all the major titles like Rocket League and Overwatch, League of Legends. Adding a few new games for next fall, but we're trying to grow the program as much as possible, but also add as many different games as possible, just to widen the scope of what is out there for esports competition, but also give opportunities for students to help out with production and social media and video editing, all the different things that go in behind it, because it is a very large industry, and esports can reflect a good majority of it. And so just want to give as many students the opportunity to join our program and compete. And we compete in a local conference, the KCAC is where our traditional athletics compete through. So we're the only Nebraska school. The rest are Kansas, Missouri, and a couple Oklahoma schools. But that's where we compete locally in the fall and the spring. And then we also compete through two different national leagues, NACE and the NECC, which are the two of the largest national collegiate esports organizations. So try to give our students as much different competition as possible, and just try and show, put ourselves out there on a national platform.
Yeah, I think that's when you talked about the different roles that are present in esports. I think that's something that a lot of people just forget about. It's not just the playing games. That's just a small part of what esports has turned into.
Yeah.
So I like that you guys are looking for those opportunities for kids too to participate. Do you ever, in your competing, do you ever run across other schools in the state? Do you ever
Yeah.
have the opportunity to compete against those?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we compete against mostly, like I said, in the Kansas and Missouri schools.
Yeah.
And then last year when we did NACE, we were actually put in the Western Conference. So we were only, I think the closest school to us was like Colorado State University. And we played all the way
Okay.
out through to Hawaii. But this year I've been trying to get some more local competition in there, connecting with coaches at different schools in the Midwest to try and just increase our local competition, but also just kind of gauge the interest level at other schools. Eventually, to hopefully, we plan a LAN event where we can travel out to a school, they can travel to us. But yeah, we played actually against some different community colleges just a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
They're adding some esports clubs and programs, which is really nice just to see them. So we play against them, and that's pretty cool. Just to kind of because that's for students who are from Nebraska, they actually might know some of the other students at other schools, like on a
Yeah.
personal level, which always adds a different element to the competition and always makes it a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my goal is to give students as much different opportunities as possible to build relationships and with each other as teammates, but also their competitors because a lot of times they'll compete, but if they keep pursuing this field of esports, this industry, they may be coworkers at some point.
Yeah. Of course. Do you ever travel for tournaments at all, or is everything that you do pretty much online?
So far, it's been all online.
Okay.
And when we do host events, we so far we've mostly hosted them in partnership with our student activities department on campus. Like
Okay.
we're hosting actually a Mario Kart event in 2 weeks. So see how many students come out there. But we were trying to hopefully travel this spring, and then we're going to put it on our in our budget and put it on our calendars to travel next fall
Okay.
at least one LAN event. Here within a couple hours, just so students get that LAN experience, which is
Yeah.
definitely a lot more exciting and energizing
Yeah.
to see your opponents and talk to them afterwards and kind of see just feel the energy and feel the presence of a LAN event.
Yeah. It's definitely adds a different flavor to a competition when you get to be in person with each other. I know that's a highlight for my kids when they travel to state. What do your seasons look like? What kind of games do you guys play?
Yeah, so so far in the fall, what we've done is we do like Rocket League in the fall, as well as we're going to be adding Valorant in the fall next year, and then in the spring we're doing Overwatch and League of Legends, and then for year round we do Smash Brothers, Hearthstone, chess. Looking to add actually Clash Royale and Mario Kart for next year,
Okay.
so they'll do our first mobile game. But for the more individual titles, they go year round, and they compete we on a weekly basis, but year round. And then for the other games, the team based games, we keep them at a season so then people can compete in multiple games at the same time without
Yeah.
getting too busy with their schedules.
Yeah. That's a good idea. All right. We got our first question from the chat here. Somebody's wanting to know what your college degree is in.
Yeah, so I actually got I have a psychology degree and then a minor in business.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
yeah,
All from York.
yeah, yep. So
Okay.
I came originally was going to be a biology major, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it. And then I started taking some psychology classes, and that really piqued my interest. And um, eventually, what I was most probably my biggest educational passion is probably like behavioral economics, and why people make the decisions that they make, and how it affects their life and the social world around them. So
All right. Very interesting. Um, all right. How many players do you currently have average on your team? I'm sure it fluctuates over the course of the year,
mhm.
maybe depending
Yeah,
on the game.
Yeah, so probably in total, what we'll have in this semester is about 15.
Okay.
And so we have 10 students who are just with esports. They don't really do any other athletic programs, and then we have about another 10 or so that compete in one game or multiple games with us, but they also are in a different athletic department or a different athletic sport. So
Okay.
most of the times they compete in their off season. Some of them are they're brave enough to do both, even if it makes their schedule crazy. Um, but a lot of times it's I have some other students who they get injured or they can't really compete anymore in their traditional sport, and so this gives them another avenue to still bring in their competitive side, even though they can't play the sport that they came to York for.
Yeah. Um, what is another question here? What is your strongest team currently?
Mm. Well, it depends on if my team's watching. So maybe some debate amongst that. But I probably at the end of the semester, I would probably say our Rocket League team. But what I've seen the past 2 weeks from our League of Legends team is really, really promising. So we start League of Legends in 2 weeks, as well as Overwatch 2. So we'll have to see. But our Rocket League team finished fourth in our conference this past season.
Nice.
They did pretty well. They made a really good, strong playoff run, and so. But from what I've seen from the League of Legends team the past couple of weeks, they've really grown out a lot as a team since August. A lot of them are freshmen coming in, and so they've brought a lot of talent, and they're really pushing hard, and they can't wait to see who they play the first week and
Yeah.
2 weeks from today, actually.
Okay, great. I know for my own teams, we're just getting started again with our Smash season and League of Legends season. In our own practices, and maybe you see this too, do you find your kids are louder with those two games when they're practicing?
Yeah, it's actually funny that you mentioned that because I was practicing Smash with one of my players last night, and then we turned around to hear one of our guys yelling, and he's from Brazil, and so he's yelling in Portuguese and stuff, and I was like. I went over just a second. I was like, "Who are you yelling at?" He's like, "Oh, I'm playing a solo game." I thought he's playing with like he's yelling at our teammates, and then he's just playing some random people online, and they threw the game. And so, probably actually League of Legends and Overwatch are probably
Yeah,
my loudest teams there. And it mostly depends on the players. I have some really
yeah,
quiet people who you can, boost their mic in Discord to 200%. And then, I have some charismatic players who really
yeah.
let their emotions down.
They get very passionate about the titles they play, right?
Yes.
How does somebody get on your team at York?
Yeah, so I have a pretty open policy. A lot of the students I've called and recruited, they showed interest in York and our esports program, so I was able to bring them on with a scholarship offer to help reduce their tuition cost. And they're just esports athletes. And then I have other people who are on other athletic programs, or they don't, they just already attend the school, but they show interest in one of our titles and kind of see if it can work in their schedule. And I bring them in, and we can have up to 3 teams per title. So I
Okay.
try and keep it as open as possible, get as many different people involved as possible. And even if we can only form one team or so, and we have subs, I try and rotate them in for different competitions. And the nice thing is there's a lot of collegiate competition out there. So I can have one roster playing in one conference, and I can have another roster playing in another conference. And just gives a lot of different people playing time. So
Yeah. Do you guys have matches certain nights of the week, certain days of the week,
if
certain
we're lucky,
times?
yeah,
Yeah.
if we're lucky, we can keep a pretty consistent schedule. I try and do my best to for the conferences that I have a voice in. I try and keep games on different nights with a good distance in between, just so we have some flexibility to reschedule as needed.
Yeah.
But we do have some overlap some nights, and we just have to stay flexible. And we'll sometimes have 2 competitions going on in the same room, and it makes it a little bit louder. But
Yeah.
where it's always if it never really creates a negative energy, it always just creates a positive competitive energy. People get done competing, they go over and support their teammate, so it always makes it fun.
Yeah. What does a typical practice look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I try and practice depending on the game, 3 to 4 times a week, depending on if they're in season or out of season. Most of the time, those practices consist of just some warm up games or drills, depending on the game, and then hopping into some online matches. Or a lot of times, I try and set up 2 to 3 scrims a week versus other colleges, or just put some teams that have just been put together. Luckily, there's a lot more sites popping out there to kind of find those teams, so I can find teams that are at our skill level, give us a good competitive advantage, and then we can run some games, run some specific maps on Overwatch or something like that. Um, and so we usually do that, and then when we're in season, usually one of those practices, an hour and a half or so, is dedicated just to VOD review.
Okay.
And I just try and do that just to encourage the students to learn that communication happens in the game while you're competing and outside of the game. So as we go through, I encourage all the students to point out their own mistakes first, and then if they can't see them, a teammate, and then or me, And I just try and get people comfortable with criticism of their self-criticism and criticism of their teams, but it's always supposed to be constructive, always
Yeah.
building towards a better team and a better mentality. And then hopefully they translate that to in game. So if they lose a round, they lose a match, they can see, okay, well, how do we got to improve for next round? What do we need to do to really make the changes necessary? And where were we strong and where were we weak?
Yeah. What is a typical uh somebody's asking here, what do competitions look like for you guys? Or that when you have, like, say you got a Tuesday night and you've got an Overwatch competition coming up, what does that look like for you guys? Do warm-ups beforehand, stuff like that?
Yeah, so we usually try and do about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes before match time. Players get in, they just do some warm up rounds. Maybe they'll play just some free for all. They try and just get in a light, comfortable mood with the game, so they're warmed up. We may hop into some just some quick play or just some ARAM from League of Legends or something, just to get them comfortable with their hands and their keys comfortable. And if we have time for some of our longer games, like League of Legends, sometimes they'll come in early enough to get a whole match in, just so
Okay.
they can feel comfortable, test out a specific comp or something. Um, but usually then it's just me communicating with the opposing team, trying to schedule it out, make sure all the details are taken care of. And me and my coaching staff, we try and take care of all that so players can just worry about hopping in the game. They got the lobby password code and everything. They can just hop in and just play. So,
Yeah. Uh, s- Somebody wants to know what games again that you guys play.
oh yeah, I'll try and announce them all if I can remember them all. So let's see: Rocket League, Overwatch 2, League of Legends, Valorant, Smash Brothers, Hearthstone, chess, FIFA. Looking to add Madden next year and Hearthstone. So, and looking to add Mario Kart and Clash Royale. I know it's a with the NSCSA adding those and putting those in. I want to support the local competition, and if there's any students who are interested, we'll take them.
Yeah. So you mentioned the sports games especially are tough for us. We always get asked about playing those, and one of our problems with it is that they're not cross-platform yet. So for at the college level, how do you guys approach that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a difficult thing that we've dealt with every semester. So usually last year, one of the college conferences, they decided that everybody's just going to compete on PC, and then you can use whatever controller. But the games weren't great on PC; they didn't run well, and so a lot of them they decided this year just to run. They're only running on a specific console, and so if that's the case, we'll just try and provide it and the equipment. And you can't use opposing controllers for Xbox versus PlayStation, but I'm hoping that in the future they see the growing scene. And the nice thing is seeing Madden, the creators of Madden and FIFA, that they're actually taking some ownership with. That there is a growing competition space, and if when you add cross-platform, it makes it a lot easier to get a lot more competition in.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that for the future. But there's a lot of actually, ESL is very, very good at running just open tournaments. They're not necessarily collegiate tournaments, but they run really well run tournaments where on multiple platforms. So you can still get a couple hundred people in a season. So you can get some
Okay.
pretty good competition and some games in. So that's what we're looking to do next year.
Okay. Very cool. Another question: with all these games, do your players practice on their own a lot, or do they just typically just practice during your scheduled practice times?
Yeah, most of them practice outside of our team practice. And our esports room is open all day. I usually open it in the morning when I come in, and it's closed around midnight or so. So they have plenty of time to come in and get their own practice in when we're not having team practice, or when we have some PCs or stations available. But a lot of them will get in games on their own, and if we have a schedule conflict and they have the capabilities, we'll just say practice on your own. This is what practice is going to look like. And the nice thing is we can check up on to see when they played games or not. And so if
Yeah.
you say, I got to do 3 solo games for league on a Saturday, we can check to see how they went. Here's the characters we want you to play specifically because this is what we need for our team comp. So we can usually
Yeah.
put those in, and And it is sometimes hard with video games compared to other sports. It is hard to sometimes maintain a balance because you can play too much and it actually is detrimental to your gameplay, your mental health, your grades, your physical health, everything like that. So we try and keep an even balance. um, but I probably say most of my players play about 50% of their time in team practice. So
Okay. All right. You mentioned scholarships. What do those look like for
yeah.
your program?
Yeah, so our scholarships they can go all the way up to cover full tuition, mostly what I look at is I try and look at four different factors when I'm looking at a student for a scholarship. So I look at their competition level, what rank they are in their specific game, their competitive history with that game, how long they've been playing, kind of show a dedication to improving and trying to learn. And then during an interview when I'm talking to them, I try and find out exactly what their mode is to and their methods to improving. So I usually ask them, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how have they identified those, and what are they doing to lower the chance of those weaknesses occurring in a game, and what are they doing to increase the strengths. So I look at those two, and then I really really value because we are a university, and your job here is to get a 4-year degree and go on to get a master's degree or job. I look at grades a lot, and usually when I see students who are doing very good in their classes, they're above a 2.5 or 3.0, they're going to do well for our team because they just have learned a sense of responsibility, and that's going to reflect in their gameplay as well. So I
Yeah.
try and look at different factors like that as I plan out a scholarship plan for them. But I also give students the opportunity to increase their scholarship throughout their time at York. So if someone comes in with a lower scholarship, maybe they're lower rank, maybe they're a bronze or silver in Overwatch, but they love the game. They come into practice and they're on time. They really really practice and they climb the ranks and they're on our number one squad and they really show some effort in there. I'm going to reward them with a higher scholarship because they're benefiting our program in a really positive way.
Yeah. Are you only offering scholarships to players, or do you also, for those other things that are part of esports, like the streaming part, or maybe graphic design, social media, whatever, are you giving scholarships for those types of things also?
Yeah, and I try and actually compare them. I put them in their own separate realm, so I try and give them a competitive advantage to what a competing player would get, because we, since we handle all of our own streaming um, and management of our teams and everything like that, having a production person or graphic design or video editor, anything like that is very very important to the program, and I'd love to reward those options monetarily. And I have students who show interest all the time because they love video games, they love esports. They're just not necessarily good enough to compete, and they know that. Or they learn it sometimes.
Yeah.
But they really enjoy. They want to be a caster someday, or they're very very intelligent about the game, and they could be very good. They When they analyze games, there's a lot of positive feedback that they're able to bring to the rest of the team, and that's still very valuable to a program. So I try
Yeah.
and try and reward those, and so yeah, we can give full scholarships for those as well.
That's great. um, Another question here from the chat: do you teach?
I do not.
Not like on a sense of yeah, are you teaching kids games? Do you have classes that you have to teach there?
No, no,
Okay.
I don't. I've been asked to teach some classes in the past, but haven't really worked out with my schedule, and I don't
Yeah.
really have the degrees to teach. So
And playing games is more fun anyway, so.
that's right.
All right, so next Friday and Saturday, we have our winter state tournament coming to York University. We're super excited that you guys offered to host for us. We're going to have over 35 schools there competing in Clash Royale and Mario Kart. Um, what are you most looking forward to for that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, any sort of LAN event is just automatically way more exciting, and it's really cool to see how excited all the players are, whether they're there to compete or just to hang out and support their teammates. They're excited to watch the competition. They'll be cheering. Um, they'll be cheering on games they don't even have teammates on, and they
Yeah.
just love it. And that's probably my favorite part is just watching. people bonding together over video games and just a commonality that we all have, despite where we live or where we go to school. So that's always the funnest part for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know my favorite part is just getting all the kids together,
Yeah.
especially, the ones we've been talking to them online or the kids have been interacting with them in games and stuff and like, "Oh yeah, they could put a name to a face and
Yeah.
you beat me a lot this season," or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, all right, one more question here quick. I know you've answered this one already, but for our late viewers here, are all competitions online or is traveling ever involved?
Yeah, right now most of our competitions are online, but I'm looking and scheduling some things out for next year and hopefully later this semester where we can travel to some collegiate LAN events, or just some wider video game or esports events that aren't necessarily collegiate, but there's still competition involved, and we can compete and go out in a physical on a physical stage and everything.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. We're really looking forward to seeing you next weekend. Um, Super looking forward to that event. Anything else you want to add before we sign off here for this week?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. I love what you guys are doing. I think the growth over the past 4 or 5 years is just really evident to the success of the players, and all the coaches and the board of the NSCSA, just to show their dedication to the program. And talking to coaches from across the country, collegiate coaches, it's very easy to brag about you guys because you seriously have one of the best state-run, self-run, really, leagues in the nation, and there's just a lot of untapped potential here that's just really representing on a national level. And it's really cool that there's so many different opportunities for these kids to compete. So I'm just
Yeah.
happy about that.
Well, thanks again, Coach, for joining us tonight. Everybody, we'll be back here next Thursday and Friday streaming our Winter State Championships, Mario Kart and Clash Royale. So we hope you'll join us then.